Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy DeYoung with Prophecy Today video. Elections in Iraq have a great prophetic significance. We'll get to that in just a moment as we think about current events in light of biblical prophecy right here on Prophecy Today video. By the way, you can go to our website, prophecytoday.com, and there you will have assistance in understanding current events in light of biblical prophecy with all the different avenues that we have available for you to learn about Bible prophecy as it relates to current events on prophecytoday.com. In just a moment, we'll be talking about the prophetic significance to Iraq's elections. But first, Bob Maginnis. He is advisor to the Defense Department in Washington, D.C. He is heard on Fox News, CNN, and many other of the news outlets giving analysis of what is happening geopolitically. Bob's going to give us his insight into the importance of this election.
Keep in mind, this is the most competitive democratic contest for power ever held in certainly the Islamic part of the Middle East. This could end up being, I think, a very critical election. It will tell us geopolitically whether or not Iran will have another partner and be able to expand its influence through the region, or whether or not the Arabs, especially the Sunni world, with Turkey and Saudi Arabia playing kind of the bookends here, will they have influence in that part of the world? A lot is riding on this election, but we don't want, obviously, to see someone return to the old days of Saddam Hussein's multi-decade rule and all the totalitarian ways in which he did it. Nor do we want to see Iran take over that country as a puppet. So there's a lot at risk here. Likely what will come out will be a coalition government that will have maybe a blend of both. What the Americans want, I believe, is a candidate that's going to be able to keep it together, not going back to civil war, and keep Iran from being a primary influencer in that country, which, of course, would hurt our interests.
And, of course, that is especially in light of the fact that the scheduled withdrawal of American troops coming out of Iraq sometime in 2011, even though they do have a plan B in place possibly. This is important, and the stability in this next elected government is key.
Absolutely. And, of course, Ray Odierno, the general in charge of American forces in Iraq, says, we are prepared to extend our stay. However, he would like to begin in May bringing 3 brigade combat teams out every month until August, leaving about 50,000 Americans. And the question is, after that, exactly what role will we have?
Colonel Bob Maginnis on the Iraqi elections. As we focus on the elections in Iraq, these are very important elections at this time in history. They must bring stability to this nation, this war-torn nation that wants to rebuild. The United States will be pulling out their military forces scheduled for next year sometime, and the big question is, can Iraq go ahead on their own? Will this democracy work in the Middle East? There is a great potential for the Iraqi people. A great nation could come forth, and a rich nation as well. The oil deposits that are under the ground in Iraq could be the greatest source of oil in all of the world. And by the way, they've only been able to get 2% out of the ground of all the oil sources that they have there in Iraq. Iraq today was in biblical times known as Babylon. Babylon was that headquarters for that world empire, that Gentile world empire, was at a time in history when Nebuchadnezzar took Daniel and Ezekiel into the Babylonian captivity along with the Jewish people. But Iraq, biblical Babylon, has a future as well prophetically. The book of Revelation, chapter 18, says that Babylon, and I'm talking about the literal city of Babylon. The word Babylon is used 3 times in chapter 18 of Revelation. The word city is used 6 times, and the word great is used 8 times. The great city of Babylon will come to power in the last 3.5 years of the tribulation period. The Antichrist will establish a one-world economic, political, governmental system in Babylon. It will be the headquarters for the economies of the world. We have now a global economic crisis, and the way to come out of that is to have a one-world economy. Just think about that. How would anybody be willing to take an identification mark in the forehead or the back of the hand, referred to in the Bible as the mark of the beast, unless it was to be able to come out of the chaos that this economic crisis is causing the entire world? Well, that's the scenario that's laid out prophetically in the book of Revelation. Chapter 13 tells us in verses 16 and 17, those who are on the earth during this tribulation period will indeed, in the last 3.5 years of that 7-year time of judgment upon the earth, will, in order to be able to buy or sell, have to have that identification mark. Well, the stage is set for all of these things to happen. Iraq is trying to rebuild a war-torn nation, and that would be the establishment of what the Bible calls for in the end times. It seems like the stage is set, all the actors are moving in place, and the elections now in Iraq at this time in history, helping to put that nation in a position to fulfill Bible prophecy. These events that we have talked about are at the end of the 7-year tribulation period. There will be a rapture of the church. That's when Jesus takes all Christians out of this world, and that happens before this 7-year period begins. The rapture of the church could actually happen at any moment, even before I conclude this broadcast. With everything we've talked about on this broadcast, the significance of the Iraqi elections all setting the stage for what's going to happen, but remember, the rapture is the next thing to happen. It's the next event on God's calendar of activities. And having said that, there's basically nothing left for me to say, except let's keep looking up until